Starting my journey to spirituality and understanding the world around me really is what I found to be my passion and what brings me solace and peace in this world. So hi everyone, and I'm really excited to be talking to you today about my spiritual journey and how I first got on that journey and what it means to me in my everyday life, as well as some of the practices that I think that might be helpful to others starting out on their spiritual journey. So I'm gonna get comfortable because I think what really led me to spirituality honestly was my upbringing in Christianity, and I hear that a lot from other people, and I think it's really important to define what I see as spirituality, and spirituality is just my understanding of the world that is around me. So it does go back to, you know, my upbringing in Christianity. Okay, so I was forced to go to church most of my upbringing by my mom, and in ways I did go through a lot of seasons in life where I believed in God and read the Bible and prayed, and then seasons where I just felt so depressed and low because of, you know, my own childhood trauma and everything going on there. Growing up, I really struggled with accepting my identity as a bisexual woman. It even feels so weird now to say that, you know, I'm a bisexual woman, and that's just because of my upbringing in Christianity. Not to dish on my mom or anything, but she would kind of throw it in my face that, you know, what I was doing was wrong. One time I had a pride shirt, I think. Like, I literally got on punishment for it. God just didn't rub the right way to me, being forced out of who I was to serve this so-called God. And so I really couldn't connect with it. And I feel like during the times that I did connect with God, it was me trying to be someone I wasn't. Me trying to make peace with someone that I wasn't, just so I could be the person that my parents wanted me to be, the person that the world wants me to be. And it really affected me even now to this day as a bisexual person. I would go through phases of liking guys a lot and then phases of liking girls a lot. When I was in those phases of liking guys a lot, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm straight. God loves me. It's okay now. I can be a faithful servant, as they say. It really started to hit me when I was 15-ish. I remember going to church one day. Outside of the church, when you weren't at church, was the hardest part for me because that's when you were expected to live, you know, like the Christian way. I grew up non-denominational, so I remember going to church and my pastor would basically talk about hot topics in the nation. So like racial justice, homosexuality. And I remember when service was on homosexuality and he was trying to use statistics to back up his point. The statistics may have been true. The way he was talking was completely misleading. And I remember him saying that lesbian relationships have the most domestic abuse, talking about how they're wrong. We shouldn't push them away. We should just accept them and try to bring them back to Christ.
Girl, you're a joke.
And after this time, I had my first girlfriend, Kayla. I remember my mom found out because I had skipped school and went to her house because it was just a really tough time for me. I just remember her telling me, you know, there's a lady at the church. She was gay. She had a girlfriend and everything, but she's saved now. Just growing up with this experience of not being able to be who I am is really what pushed me away from the church. And not to mention, I've always been a person who would like to question and connect things. And with Christianity, I just remember asking, like, who made God? Moving on to my childhood, I had a lot of experiences growing up. It just makes sense. It feels like, in a way, I've just been going back to who I was as a child, because like as a child, I remember there was this time in 5th grade, 6th grade where I was super interested in being Wiccan and pagan. I don't even know how I found it, but I just remember that I had like this book. I really resonated with the concept that, you know, we are one with nature. All the questions in the world can be answered by living your everyday life. I remember during this time I was trying to get my friends to be pagan with me so we could do witchy spells. I remember like learning about the different deities and how you could believe in multiple deities, and this was such a foreign concept to me at the time, but it was something that I couldn't tell my parents. I remember one conversation I had with my dad, and we were sitting on our porch. In front of the porch was like this little wooded area, and I would go into the wooded area all the time and just hug the trees and just feel really one with nature and at peace. I remember sitting there with my dad. We were talking about what happens to you after death. I was like, I don't believe in heaven or hell. I believe that we come back. It's reincarnation. He's like, oh, so you believe that you'll come back as a bird? And you know, he was listening to me, but at the same time, I just felt so ridiculed and embarrassed because I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, how do you come back as a bird? But at the same time, now I'm like, no, you were 100% right. The lack of education and the lack of social acceptance will make you feel like such an outsider just for having an idea that is somewhat different. But hold on, 10 years later, you know, everyone now believes in, everyone's now spiritual. But during this time, I would literally sit in the shower and meditate. And I remember one experience that I had was I would close my eyes and I would envision myself in this field, and it was full of flowers, and there was a big gate and it was gold, and I would walk towards the gate and there was like this deity, and she would, you know, welcome me into the gate. It just felt so safe. And I remember I didn't even know what I was doing. That's the crazy part. At this time, I didn't know what I was doing was meditation. And now looking back on it, it just shows that this is truly where I was meant to be, and that could have been a spirit guide or something. Another time that I remember growing up, this was actually in high school, so this wasn't super far away, but my mom, she lived in Florida. It was like this one week where my mom and I hadn't talked for like a good year, and I was like, you know, I just really miss my mom. I wish she would come down from Florida. And then the next morning I woke up and she called me and she was like, I'm on my way from Florida. Putting that much energy into it really manifested into what I wanted. It's just crazy looking back as an adult and seeing you were really on the right path this entire time, and that these magical ways show up in your everyday life without you even realizing. So that's my childhood, and that's my religious upbringing, and that's what got me to where I am right now. At the start of the pandemic, I kind of fell into that matrixy vibe. I ended up having to move out, and I moved out into my first place, which is where I'm currently at. Just the big changes because I was only 17 when I moved out, so having to deal with everything going along with that kind of helped my girlfriend because she was going through a very tough time, which brought me to, I would say, like around July 2020. I started reading A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and after reading this book, I was just completely changed because these are concepts that I had never heard of. Ego death, and just this book really connected spirituality, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam. It was just a culture shock to me to know that you can believe something outside of these organized religions and not have to put a label onto it. Go about your daily life trying to be a better person and bringing heaven on earth. There's so many quotes that I highlighted because it was such a pivotal time, and it just came at the right time, and it completely changed my life. From that point, I started really doing a lot of shadow work on myself. I would say that during that time is really one of the most spiritual times of my life because it was the start of my awakening. A friend of mine, Araceli, and I started going to see the sunrise every day at 5 a.m. We really solidified a good morning practice, and just thinking back on that time brings so many good memories because I was truly at one with myself, and I could say that that's the most productive and the most peace that I've ever felt. And I was going to the beach in the morning and being in nature, meditating, and I would go work out, come home and eat breakfast. I would journal, and it completely really changed how I viewed life. I went from seeing life in a materialistic way. I only valued myself by how much I made, how productive I could be. I would say that during that time is when I discovered Hitomi. She's a YouTuber, as well as Meg Josephson. Start of my spiritual journey, it wasn't really delving into crystals or delving into tarot or, you know, any of that outside stuff, but it was more so delving into myself and really committing to take care of myself physically and also mentally, because I don't think I've ever really treated myself with the level of care and compassion. Then, you know, after really starting my journey, since starting my journey, I have filled up 3 journals, and this was only in July 2020. It hasn't even been a year yet, and I haven't even gone back and looked at them, but I'm sure that there's so many lessons that I take and revisit, which brings me to, I did fall off of that morning routine, especially when it started to get colder. I've kept the values that I've picked on since that time in my life at the forefront. During the winter, I really had a dark season. I ended up going to Georgia to work on a political campaign with my job. I was really in this mindset of you need to hustle, because who are you if you're not producing? It's not creativity or content that I was producing. It was trying to produce some numerical value to fill a void within myself. And when I was in Georgia, I literally was at a coffee shop every single day and working on trying to get my real estate license license when I knew truly that's not what I wanted to be doing. So it was a really dark time in my life where I sort of fell off of my spirituality and fell off of doing the things that I know internally brought me peace. There was a lot of TikTok conspiracies going on, like a dark winter, and I found myself falling into those traps of having an unhealthy distrust with the government and letting it really rule my life. And I realized that thinking those things was only instilling fear in me and not having me to have a happy and healthy experience as a human in this body. I would say that during winter, the early months of 2021 was when a lot of people really started posting about their spirituality. We were all having this spiritual awakening. What I really learned from that experience was that we really need to respect the people that come before us, because people are appropriating these cultures without having no idea the history and the meaning or the people that discovered these concepts. So I really started to have more of an interest in learning about the origin of astrology, learning about the origin of chakras, learning about the origin of yoga, educating myself, because how can I practice something without having a true understanding of why this works, why it makes me feel like that? I mean, that is what brought me to spirituality in the first place. I've also started embracing my femininity. I read this book called Pussy by Regina Thomas Hauser, and it really helped me to start embracing my femininity. So many times are we told to put it off, or that it's not important. Your sexuality and your sensuality is not worth caring about. We as women were constantly sacrificing our own happiness for others. I truly believe that book really spoke to me and helped me to go even deeper to uncovering some of my shadow self and understanding why I have these certain insecurities. So right now, I would say that what I'm really working on is going back to my roots, addressing a lot of problems that I'm dealing with physically on a physical level. I was recently diagnosed with PCOS. It's been really hard for me to feel okay in my body, and I believe it really connects with my spirituality because it explains a lot of issues that I've dealt with past. So I've been trying to really go back to my roots and learn about herbalism and just like my cultures, as well as the notion that if I'm honoring my spirituality, it also means honoring the physical body that I'm currently in. Really working through a lot of fat phobic ideology that I have. And also a big one for me has been surrendering to this idea that we have to have a big purpose in the world. I believe that our souls came here for a reason, but I think that our purpose is usually tied to capitalism. And that has been a huge issue for me because as a child, I felt validation by how productive I was being or how good I was doing in school. So surrendering to the idea that I no longer have to have a capitalistic purpose has been really the center of my work. Being almost 19, it's scary because a lot of my peers are out here getting a college degree or starting on their careers, and I often feel like I'm falling behind. So really making that decision to not knowing everything and to not knowing my purpose or not knowing where my career is gonna go has really been the root of my work right now, and it's something that I'm unraveling and trying to deal with. And then right now I am fully committing to being a creator. I am fully committing to creating some form of art to share a piece of myself with the world, whether it be through painting or writing or making videos or taking pictures. I think that's truly all of our purpose. Our purpose is that we're here to leave a mark on this earth. And so for me, that is through creating. And so I am pushing myself to express myself. So some of the spiritual practices that I like to follow, I like to meditate, do yoga, journal, make sure you're trying out shadow work especially. That's the part of ourselves that we often push away from, even ourselves from listening to. But that's really where our subconscious lies and where a lot of our values and intrinsic beliefs are held. So writing out to that shadow self and really getting to know that person really will help you grow deeper in your spiritual journey. I also like to read and make time to sit alone in nature. Morning routines are my go-to because that's just like first thing in the morning, you carve out time to do what you need to do. A big one for me recently has been praying out loud and saying affirmations. My affirmations has really helped cultivate space and time for myself to let go and breathe and know that everything's okay and to surrender to the universe. I know that everything that I want to happen will. Going about your everyday life as if it's a ritual. When you're in the shower, making space to breathe and to know that you are here and you're fully present. Washing the dishes, or even just going on a walk, just making every moment in your life a time that it can be spiritual and that it can be healing. So lastly, I want to present to you guys some of my favorite resources. As I mentioned, I really recommend Hitomi and Meg. Those are two YouTubers who are just so wholesome and their videos are so nourishing. Ali, the Journey Junkie, if you want to do some yoga that is centered on spirituality. I also recommend Live the Life You Love. She makes guided meditation videos for virtually any cause that you can think of, and her voice is just so soothing. Highly recommend. It's really what got me into meditation. And then lastly, I do want to talk to you all about books. So some of my recommended books are A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. It should be on everyone's to-do list if you are interested in spirituality. Lots of messages to take from it. Another really good book is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. There's just a lot of wisdom in this book. Every time you read it, I'm sure you'll get something new because you'll be in a different place of your life. I highly recommend Untamed by Glennon Doyle. It was really big at the beginning of the year. It's just so beautifully written. Like, the book is very unconventional in the style, hence the name, Untamed. It's just very easy to connect to. I found myself really relating to the author, and I'm sure that you will too, because there's something in this book for everyone. Biggest and greatest thing that you can do for yourself is to journal. There's a lot of lessons to be learned from yourself. I believe that we all know the answers, we just won't face them. All right, well, thank you guys so much for watching that video. I know it was kind of long, kind of hectic, but I really appreciate you all being here and making space to listen to my thoughts and opinions. Make sure to like this video and subscribe. Bye.